On today's edition of Women and Money Montreal, we're going to be talking about or going over 3 ways to leverage the equity in your home. Now, before I begin, I'd like to clarify some of the terminology that we're going to be using today, especially the two words that are actually in this week's topic. So, number one, what is leveraging? So, leveraging in simple terms means that you are borrowing money in an effort to make a profit on that money. And you want to make sure that the profit that you make is greater than the cost of borrowing. So everybody here kind of understands how a loan is. And when you are borrowing money in the form of a loan, whatever it is that you're using with that money that you're borrowing, if you want to leverage, you want to make sure that the profit that you make by using that borrowed money is greater than the cost of borrowing. Very important. So number two, what is equity? So equity is the portion of your home that you actually own. So for the majority of us, we don't buy our homes in cash. We usually take out a mortgage, and a mortgage is basically a loan using real estate as collateral. So the equity in your home is the portion of the home that you actually own, the percentage of the home that you actually own. And what is that amount? That amount is the fair market value of your house. So fair market value is if you were to put your home on the market today and you were to sell it, minus how much you owe in the mortgage. And the longer that you've owned your home, location, appreciation varies depending on your location. And the longer you've had your house, chances are that your house has gone up in value. So as your house goes up in value, even if the mortgage payments are still the same, the equity or the portion of the home that you own increases over time. So now that we have that out of the way, we'll get to tonight's topic. 3 ways to leverage the equity in your home. There are many ways to do it. I broke it down into 3. Number 1, using the equity in your home to refinance and pay off higher interest debts. So unfortunately, over the last, I don't know how many years, we as consumers have been borrowing a lot of money. We're using credit cards now more than ever, unsecured lines of credit. We're buying cars at higher interest rates or leasing cars at higher interest rates than ever before. We're making big purchases like upgrading furniture. We're installing pools. And again, most of the time when we make these purchases, we don't use cash, we use borrowed money. And that borrowed money tends to have a higher interest rate than any interest rate you'll ever get at the same time with real estate through a mortgage. So one way to leverage the equity in your home, if you're someone who has high interest debts, is to use the equity that you have in your home, refinance your mortgage, and pay off that consumer debt. And what that does is that clears the debt, so you no longer have that minimum payment that you've been paying, and you get to pay the loan off at a much lower interest rate. Even though interest rates right now are a little bit higher than they used to be, they are much better than a 19% credit card or even a 29% credit card. So if you want to figure out if it's worth it to refinance your home and to pay off that debt, speak with a mortgage professional and do the calculations. Make those calculations to see if it's worth it. And trust me, I've done it for clients. Even if the amounts seem big, break it down. How much does it cost to maybe break the term of your mortgage? If there's a penalty that needs to be paid, what's the cost of borrowing? And what's the other side of the coin? If I were to continue making those payments, how long is it going to take and how much interest am I paying? Make those calculations to see if it's the right decision or the right option for you. Number 2, this has been coming up a lot lately, leveraging the equity in your home for retirement. So a lot of people that I speak with in their 50s, they find themselves in a position where they're homeowners. They've put everything that they've had into their home, so they don't have anything actually saved for retirement, or they have some monies set aside for retirement, or maybe they have a pension plan or a group RSP at work. But when they do their calculations, it's they can't see themselves retiring. They just don't have enough. So is it a good idea to leverage the equity in your home, take some of that money and invest it in the markets? When I say markets, I mean invest in mutual funds, index funds, exchange traded funds, segregated funds, maybe through self-directed investing, whatever it is. But take some of that money by refinancing, taking that equity out of your home that's in brick and mortar, take that actual cash and invest it. Now, as I said in number one, you have to ask yourself, what's the cost of borrowing this money? And what am I doing? What's my investment? What am I investing this money in? Does it make sense? The purpose of leveraging is to borrow money in order to make a profit. And if you're going to do something like this, leveraging the equity in your home to churn a profit in order to have money for retirement, you don't want to take that money and invest in high interest savings accounts, or you don't want to take that money and invest in GICs. I know the high interest savings accounts and GICs are paying a decent return, or they have been for the last 18 months, but that's going to change by the end of this year. What you want to do is, if you have 10 plus years, you want to make sure that you take advantage of the markets that have been bouncing back since last year. So again, if you want to look at using the equity in your home to fund your retirement, it's not a bad option, but the numbers have to make sense. And again, speak with your financial advisor or financial planner and work this out with your mortgage professional to see if the numbers, crunch some numbers, make a plan, see if it makes sense. Number three, the reason why many of you are probably here is one of those popular ways, and what everybody talks about is using the equity in your home to purchase more real estate. So this is something that those who have grown up with real estate investing understand. You use equity in properties to continuously buy real estate. That's what it is. That's what it is. If you're someone who hasn't purchased anything yet, but you know for sure that you want to invest in real estate and own multiple properties, ideally the first property you choose is going to be a rental and not your first property. Why? Because as an investment property owner, you have advantages of you have access to certain deductions that don't come with living in an owner-occupied home. So ideally, the first purchase that you make is going to be a rental property. Again, boils down to the numbers. Everybody wants to buy as a first property some type of duplex, triplex, fourplex, a multiplex. Look at the numbers and see if that's something you could afford if you're buying by yourself. If you can't purchase by yourself, see if you have someone in your entourage who is willing to co-borrow with you and become a co-owner. That way you're two incomes, maybe two down payments, and it will help. But at the end of the day, if you find that you're by yourself, and after crunching the numbers, you can only afford to purchase a condo, that's not the end of the world. At least you're taking that first step. And again, it boils down to the numbers. Once you purchase whatever first property that you have, the name of the game is, remember what I was talking about, equity, the equity in your home, and the equity in your home goes up in value the longer you own your property, and depending on where you are. Certain municipalities there, the appreciation of houses go up in value much faster than others. So once you start having equity in your real estate property, what you could do is refinance property one, take some equity out of that to purchase property number two. And again, it boils down to the calculations. This is something you really need to be on top of. And if you have a good mortgage professional by your side, they're going to be able to guide you through the process. Another person you want to have on your team is a good realtor, because they'll be able to kind of see which properties are worth it. For example, if you're someone who only wants to invest in condos as rental properties, your real estate broker is going to make sure that the condos that you purchase are in buildings that allow for rentals. All these little details that you might miss out on, that you might miss out on because you don't have the experience. These are two people, mortgage professional and real estate broker, that you need to have on your team if you're thinking of investing in real estate. So a question that comes up often is, Lynn, I'm not a millionaire. How the heck do these people afford to purchase more and more real estate? It's all the same. So you have to make sure that you have enough equity in property number one, use that equity to purchase property number two, so on and so forth. You need to make sure each property is, number one, cash flow positive, meaning that you don't need to take money out of your pocket in order for it to run on its own. If it is not cash flow positive, not the end of the world. Whatever it is that you have to dish out of pocket every month in order to make ends meet, that amount is added onto your debt ratio when you try to purchase the next property. Not the best situation, but not the end of the world. It's just kind of considered as debt. So nowadays it is, it's kind of gone. Not completely, but it's not the same like back in the day where a lot of us who are immigrants, our parents purchased a duplex or a triplex and the tenants paid the rent. That's kind of it's not as easy to find anymore. So a lot of times real estate investors who are getting into it now, they find themselves having to shell some money out of pocket in order to make ends meet with the property. Not the end of the world, but we include it kind of as your debt when we evaluate your borrowing power for your next purchase. And that's how people who invest in multiple properties, that's how they do it. It's all about the numbers. And if you're sitting there, you're in your home that you own, that you live in, and you keep thinking, man, I want to buy more properties. I just don't know how. I don't know how I could do it. Or on the other side, you're like, oh, I'm ready to invest in a duplex. I'm ready to invest in a triplex. That's all fine, but it needs to be tangible and you need to make sure the calculations work. And if you don't have someone behind you, you need to get the mortgage professional, the real estate broker who can narrow down, number one, what you could afford and what is a good investment for you. What is a good business investment for you? Because real estate investing is a business. And you really need to have the right people on your team to make sure that you're investing in properties that make sense. If you're going to buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, and the tenants have been there for a long time, you can't just automatically evict them. You have to see what kind of tenants they are, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to crunch the numbers with you. And hopefully we could be together on your real estate journey.